For weeks, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has pushed Western leaders to support his so-called victory plan, which he claims will end the country's war with Russia next year. But Mr. Zelensky has received only lukewarm, rhetorical support. I wonder why that is. Because, I don't know, maybe it's because all these damn Western countries knew damn well that Ukraine could not win this war on its own. That's the bottom line. We have to support Ukraine. We have to. And I remember when this damn war began, that jackass, what's his name? That schmuck, what's his name? Hannity, Sean Hannity. That guy, he's a sycophant for everything Republican, this guy. I remember that guy. He said, he was arguing with that lady. What's her name? Tulsi Gabbard or whoever. He was arguing with this lady, and this lady said, hey, I think it's cruel to send Ukrainians guns and I think it's cruel to give those people false hope when you know damn well that they can't win a war against Russia. And Sean's like, are you saying you don't support the Ukrainians? It's a bunch of bullshit. We should have never freaking prolonged this war. We should have pushed for a ceasefire immediately. It's complete garbage. And now tens of thousands of people are dead. It's a crime. This whole thing is a crime. It's an absolute crime. I'm not a big fan of Ukraine. All right, I'm not on the Ukraine ship, but I feel sorry for those people. I really do. I feel sorry for people who are forced to go in a war in their 40s. You got 40-year-olds. You got Ukrainian and Russian men in their 40s in freaking trench warfare. Men in their 40s don't belong in no trenches. It's crazy. So many dead people, and for what? For what? So we can expand NATO, and we can make sure that American democracy, translation, guys, translation, Sodom and Gomorrah, all right? Anyone who's pro-NATO is pro-Sodom. We should expand NATO, so we should expand the rainbow flag. That's all it is. You want to expand the rainbow flag, and that means what? That means being in favor for tens of thousands of people dead, getting killed in the battlefield. It's absolute insanity. It's time to put an end to this damn thing. Give more weapons, more tanks, do this, do that. It's nothing. It's a racket. Some wise man once said that war is a racket. He was right. It's a racket. It's a great opportunity for a bunch of industrialists to make money, tanks, bullets, the whole thing. It's a racket. And here's the thing. They're going to try to make a ceasefire deal with the Russians. Putin ain't going to leave empty-handed. He's not. He's not going to leave empty-handed. He's going to want territory. So maybe you will have a ceasefire, but it's not going to be with the Russians leaving empty-handed. They're going to get something out of this. They're going to get something out of this. What's that going to be? It's going to be territory. It's going to be at least a chunk of eastern Ukraine. Donbass. Oh, the victory plan did not work. Oh, no shit. Well, it didn't work, guys. Who would have thought that a third world country in Eastern Europe would not be able to defeat the second most powerful military in the world? And Zelensky wanted to make a peace agreement with Putin. And what happened? That Boris Johnson, that merchant, went over to Zelensky and he said, "You better not do this, Zelensky. You best not do it. We want to continue this war as long as possible." This damn thing's been going on for 2 freaking years. It's been going on for almost 3 years. What is it going to stop? Almost 3 years of this bullshit. And here's what's going to happen, in my opinion. I think that if Trump wins, he's going to say, we got to focus on China. We have to focus on China. That means helping the samurai over there in Japan. That's what it is. They want to go help the samurai over there in Japan. We got to focus on China, everybody. Well, who's going to deal with Ukraine? We'll shoulder that burden onto the Germans. So then the Germans are going to say, okay, yeah, we'll take that responsibility, America. You go deal with China over there and go arm the Japanese and go make some money with them. Go make some money with the samurai over there, Samurai Jack over there. And then the Germans are going to say, all right, everybody, we're back in business. For over 8 decades, we have been told that we are not allowed to be participators in any conflict. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit, and that's all going out the window. We are back. We are back on the warpath, everybody. And all they're going to need is a Hitler. They're going to be waiting for a Führer who's going to lead them. We have to deal with Russia, bad economy, bad inflation in Germany, migrant problems. They're awaiting their Führer. That's what they're doing over there in Germany. They're awaiting their Führer. And then America's going to say, listen, we're done with Ukraine. And then Germany's going to say, you wanted this bullshit? You wanted this bullshit? And now you're shouldering all this on us? Yeah. Well, I guess we got to deal with it then. We can't rely on America. Translation, we got to make Germany powerful again. And then you're going to see a German revival. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Someone again is saying that my audio is fading out. Jesus have mercy. OBS is literally telling me that my audio is registering. Every word I'm saying, every syllable that I'm expressing is being registered by the OBS sound system. I don't know if I'm being trolled by this audio with this audio stuff or if this guy's speakers are something out of 1998. I have no idea. This guy has a speaker system that's part of his Game Boy. This guy has a speaker system that's connected to his Game Boy Color. I don't know what the issue is. Maybe it's an NES. I don't know. I think it's obvious what's going to happen. America's going to say, we're going to focus on China. We got to give weapons to the Japanese. And we got to help the Japanese get back on the warpath. Get the samurai back up in arms. And we got to get the Japanese to be willing to fight for the emperor again or something like that. Or fight for the government. And then the Germans are going to say, okay, well, we got to revive our power. We got to revive our military strength just like it was back in the 1930s. And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a revival of the Reich. I reset my phone. Don't worry about it. I'm just joking with you. Don't worry about it. I understand that technology has its problems. That's what I see. Like, I don't have a whole lot of optimism, even with Trump. If Trump wins, it's like, okay, now the Europeans are going to be saying, hey, we got our reason. We have our reason to go back to the warpath. Germany right now, I think, is split between people who just want to be vassals of America and people who want to actually be independent and not be dependent on America's empire. And so I think Germany is pursuing more and more military independence. 45 people are watching the stream. That's pretty good. I think it's because for the first time in a long time, I started this stream by first scheduling it through OBS, and then what that did was it sent a notice to everyone who subscribes to me, or to a lot of people who subscribe to me, that, hey, Ted's going to be live. And then, bam. Do we have trolls? We always have trolls here. So let's go back to this nonsense. Zelensky's lobbying tour of the United States and Europe over the past 6 weeks could be seen as a failure. The whole thing's a failure. The whole Ukraine thing's a failure. It's a big mess up. But the real audience for the plan might be at home. Some military analysts and diplomats say Mr. Zelensky can use his hard sell, including a recent address to Parliament, to show Ukrainians that he has done all he can. Blah, blah, blah. I think Zelensky, I suspect this guy's going to flee the country. I heard that this guy bought a bunch of real estate in Italy and in the US, and he put a bunch of money in foreign accounts. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the news that this guy has fled his country. Because I know there are a lot of Nazis in Ukraine who want to lynch him. That's what I've heard. So long as these European nations don't try to expand and invade others, what's the problem? Well, we've seen history. That's the problem. If Germany becomes a military power again, do you think that it will make the UK want to be a military? Of course, absolutely. There's currently, I think, just a big wave of military industrialization. You see it in the UK, Japan, Turkey, and a lot of different countries. They want to be more independent when it comes to military technology. 50 people? Damn. That's good. Should I tell everyone to hit that like button? I don't know, guys. Hit that like button. I've never done this before. This is the first time I've ever said people hit that like button. They say it works. I don't like doing it, though. It feels kind of shameless. American military and intelligence officials have concluded that the war in Ukraine is no longer a stalemate as Russia makes steady gains. Oh, I'm so shocked that Russia's winning. Didn't we hear... Do you guys remember how when the war first began, we were hearing about how Russia sucks? Oh, yeah, man, they couldn't take Kiev, man. They went over to Kiev and they got slaughtered. We were hearing about how Russia sucks at fighting and they suck and, oh, my God, they're just getting their asses handed to them. Look at the news today. American military and intelligence officials have concluded that the war in Ukraine is no longer a stalemate. Russia makes steady gains, and the sense of pessimism in Kiev and Washington is deepening. What a bunch of garbage. And I said it from the beginning. Literally the night this war commenced in 2022, I wrote an article about this, and I said it right there. I said, guys, this is going to lead to the revival of German power. That's what this is. You're not going to see a Ukrainian victory. That's all bullshit. One of the major results of this war will be the revival of German power. Because the Germans are going to... And they've already said this. We got the Russian threat. Rewind back to the 1930s. And what was it? The Soviet threat. Ain't shit changed, has it? They're going to get they're waiting for their Fuhrer. They're waiting for their Messiah. Just like the Iranians are waiting for the 12th Imam. The dip in morale and questions about whether American support will continue pose their own threat to Ukraine's war effort. Ukraine is losing territory in the east. No shit. And its forces inside Russia have been partially pushed back. No shit. No shit. Who tried to invade Russia in the past? The Mongolians, the French, the Swedes, the Germans. And you think an army of a few thousand Ukrainians is actually going to make a huge difference? This is insane. And you know who trained these poor Ukrainian guys who went into Russia? The freaking British. You know, talk to a Serbian guy. Talk to anybody from Serbia. What do they always tell you? It's the British, the British, the British. Talk to any Serb, they'll tell you, the damn British. In this case, the Serbs are absolutely right. It's the damn Brits. They trained these Ukrainians. They're like, it's not working. It's not working. Let's see. Let's compare this to history. That's why it's so important to read history. People who don't want to read history are morons. Who would have thought? Or they're just plain evil and they want to deny the obvious. Let's see. Mongolians, French, Swedes, Germans, all these people invaded Russia. Oh my God, they weren't that successful, were they? It's like when the Wehrmacht first entered Russia, they were told, oh, this is a nothing, they're going to defeat the Russians are bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And the Germans had all these victories. Guess what happened? Those poor German, well, not poor, fuck those guys. Those German Wehrmacht soldiers were walking through the flat Russian terrain, seeing for miles not a single human soul, not a single village, not a single town, just miles and miles of flat land with telephone poles or electric poles, something like that. And they're just walking on this flat land. They're like, Hans, I don't see anything. We've been walking for days. And it was at that point that they realized that they were fucked. Bottom line, they were fucked. Yeah, and Poland invaded Russia. Yeah, that's why you guys still have beef with each other. But we're going to send an army of like 5,000. How much was it? 20,000 or whatever Ukrainians? Yeah, it's not working. It's not working, guys. That's why I always say you got to read history. So many people in the world don't give a shit about history. They don't. They don't give a damn about history. You could tell them, listen, this is what happened in the past. So if you do the same shit that people did in the past, you're going to get a similar or an equal outcome. Oh, I don't believe that. I mean, times have changed, you know. And when has that ever worked? It's like Refined Canine over here. He says, getting the migrants out. See, this is the problem. Okay. Refined Canine said, why are you worried about the revival of German militarism, nationalism, German power, or whatever? And I said, look at history. 3 words, look at history. That's it. It's like when someone says, why do you think they should execute serial killers? Because they deserve it. 3 words, they deserve it. That's it. Look at history. That's all I need to do. Look at history. I don't have to explain myself and, oh, here's the reason and here's why. And look at history. Look at history. World War I, World War II. And you can even go before that. You can go to the 30 Years' War, and you will see in the 30 Years' War that Germany was at the center of it. Or you can go to the Great War when Sweden tried to defeat Russia in war, and they went into Ukraine, and they fought the Russians, and they got their asses whooped in Ukraine. Now, Sweden is not Germany. No, it's not, but it's part of the Germanic world, and it's a part of that Germanic part of Europe. And there they were trying to fight the Russians. There they were. And World War I, the same thing. The Germans were trying to fight the Russians. World War II, the Germans and the Finns and the Swedes, they tried to fight the Russians. You just see this pattern in history. But then Napoleon, the same thing. Napoleon and all of his European vassals, they tried to fight the Russians. I mean, you just see this pattern in history. It's part of the beauty of humanity in a way, that we're just kind of all part of this song where the lyrics rhyme, except that the lyrics in this case is history and people die. But it is fascinating nonetheless. And you just see it right there. But then people say, well, why are you worried about this? It's like if someone has a criminal record and they've been to prison 2 times and now they're living in your neighborhood and you're like, well, why are you worried about this? And the problem is that people are stuck in the present. See, people say, Ted, you're stuck in the past. I would say you're stuck in the present. I would say people are enslaved and they are confined within the present moment. That's a problem. I've met people like this. I only live for the now. So when you say, hey, listen, history could repeat itself, well, that's impossible. Well, why is it impossible? Well, because this sort of thing is happening right now. Well, how do you know that's going to be the case forever? How do you know? Things change, damn it. Things change. Treaties get thrown out. Relations dissipate. Things fragment. That's why I say we're entering a new world, everyone. We are entering a new world where Jew hatred is becoming more and more normal. I got neo-Nazis putting pamphlets in front of my door saying the Jews are this and that. I mean, it's scary. It is freaking weird. It's scary. It is. It is scary. Yes, I am scared, damn it. I will say it. I am scared. I'm very scared for the future. All this sick stuff, eugenics coming back, transhumanism, anti-Semitism becoming more and more normalized, all these evils surfacing up through the social media apps like X, militarism becoming more and more acceptable, Germans talking about making nuclear weapons, people talking about doing Holocaust 2.0. I mean, damn it, yes, I am scared. Absolutely, I'm very scared for the future. It's scary. Absolutely. And I think you would be a fool to say otherwise. But the difference today is, let me give you guys something here. I want to show you guys something here. I was preparing for this. I'm going to be right back. Hold up. I'm going to be right back. Hold up. So I want to show you guys some examples of naysaying. This is from a book that I've been reading. It's very good. It's called The East-West Tree by Philip Sands. And this guy goes on a journey to investigate the life of his grandfather who survived the Holocaust, also the life of some pretty prominent figureheads in the realm of international justice, people like Hirsch Lauterpacht and the like. And he talks about this guy named Raphael Lemkin. Raphael Lemkin was the guy who coined the term genocide. And Raphael Lemkin was a Holocaust survivor. He was in Poland when the Soviets and the Germans were invading it. And I want to read to you guys some excerpts here from this book. to show you how Lemkin foresaw the Holocaust happening, how he warned people about it, and they said that he was full of shit. So let's get to this real quick. In the province of Volhynia, Mr. Lemkin, rested near the small town of Dubno, taking refuge with the family of a Jewish baker. Why would the Jews want to escape from the Nazis? The baker asked. So Lemkin is telling him, listen, the Jews are running away from the Nazis. And this Jewish baker says, why would the Jews run away from the Germans? That doesn't make any sense. Now, the fact that somebody would be surprised at someone telling them that Jews are running away from Germans tells us something about how people saw Germany in those days. How did they see Germany in those days? Not too different from how we see it today. Because we see Germany as what? Western country, very civilized, technologically advanced, which all those things are true. In those days, they saw it in the same way. Germany, Western country, innovative, technologically advanced. It's the center for medical research. And then later on, it would be the center for medical research in the sense of using human beings as guinea pigs. But before the Holocaust, before all that stuff happened, Germany was seen as a very civilized country. People were shocked at hearing that Germans were being barbarians. And that's the problem with a lot of people. They think, well, Africans are killing each other. Let's see. There's a civil war going on in Sudan right now. RSF is butchering civilians in different areas of Sudan. No one's really talking about this because it's not really surprising to us, right? Because violence is something that's common in various parts of Africa. Here you have, this civil war going on in Sudan. Civilians being butchered. But then you can say, well, we saw this with Rwanda. So who cares? So Africans are associated with civil war, violence, cannibalism, and all that stuff. So we don't really care. Cartel violence in Mexico, who cares? But if I were to tell you that Germans were being barbarians, you would be shocked. And that's the problem with people. We discriminate too much. We discriminate in the sense that we say, okay, these people are Western, they're advanced. We put them in this status where we just don't believe that these people could be violent. But then you look at Europe's history and you see, for almost, with the exception of the past 70 plus years, Europe has been an extremely violent place. Look at all the wars that have happened in Europe since the beginning of its history. You go all the way back to prehistoric times, you find in the archaeological data, you find tremendous evidence for mass violence and wars, tribal war and things like that. And then you go into the historic era and you find tremendous evidence for nonstop wars. So many wars took place in Europe's history. You just would never end. You can fill up a whole library with books on all the wars that have happened in Europe's history. But because there has been relative peace and harmony in these past 7+ decades, basically since the end of the Second World War, we associate Europe with this beacon of peace. Right now, it is a beacon of peace. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Europe is a barbaric place, but I'm saying that it's going to go back to barbarism. That's what I'm saying. So this baker tells Lemkin, Germans are killing Jews? Jews are running away from Germans? How is this possible? Lemkin told him about Mein Kampf and the intention to destroy the Jews, quote, like flies. The baker scoffed. He knew nothing of such a book, couldn't believe the words to be true. He scoffed at Mr. Lemkin for saying this. This wasn't like other wars, Lemkin told him. It was a war to destroy whole peoples. Now that's powerful. So he tells the baker, this is not a war like other wars, my friend. This is a war to exterminate entire peoples. This is a war of genocide. And later on, Lemkin would coin the term genocide. Lemkin had a nephew named Sol, like Shaul, the name of Paul. And it says here that according to Sol, some listened to Mr. Lemkin's warnings, but his uncle faced stiff opposition. So Mr. Lemkin's faced stiff opposition for warning people about the Nazis. His ideas belonged, quote, to the past. This is before World War II. And Lemkin is warning people about the Holocaust, about the coming Holocaust of the Jews and other people. And they're telling Mr. Lemkin, you are stuck in the past. That's what they're telling me. They're telling me the same thing, that you're stuck in the past. It's exactly what Mr. Hegel said, the German philosopher. He said that the one thing that we always learn from history is that people don't learn from history. If you don't read history, you'll be doomed to repeat it. Well, people read history and they're still doomed to repeat it. Why? Because we forget, or we don't know, or we refuse to recognize the reality that the one thing we don't learn from history is that people don't learn from history. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, here's another example. It's not exactly naysaying, but it parallels. So there was this guy named Dr. Zalkauskas, and he was an acquaintance of Raphael Lemkin. So it says here, Dr. Zalkauskas, a retired judge, asked Mr. Lemkin how Poland could disappear in 3 weeks. Because Lemkin told him Poland, as you know it, is not going to be here. Such things happen, Lemkin replied stoically. Some things happen. And that's it. That's what he told them. Such things happen. The problem is that we have been too spoiled by peace. And now it's not a problem to be living in peace. We all want to live in peace. But the problem is that people have taken this peace for granted. And so they say, well, no, everything's going to be this way. Well, nothing lasts forever. And peace is one thing that does not last forever if we are to learn from human history. Times have changed is like saying, who talks about the Armenian Genocide? Exactly. And before the Holocaust, there was the Holocaust of the Armenians, and there was the Holocaust of the Namibians. And a lot of people talk about the Armenian Genocide. Not a whole lot of people talk about the massacre of the Namibians. The massacre of the Namibians is considered to be I believe, the first genocide in the 20th century. And basically, the Namibians were under German rule. They tried to do a revolution, and the Germans responded by genociding them. And they said, well, we're trying to fight terrorism. Kind of like what the Israelis are doing with the Palestinians. Difference today is America will not allow Germany to roam wild. That's not true. You see, that's the big assumption that people make. They say, well, America will not allow this. America will not allow this. America has its own problems. And those problems are getting worse. A tremendous political division. America is, and I've said this before, but America is exhausted with war. They don't want to hear anything about the Middle East. They're sick of it. And so the idea that, well, America's not going to allow this, what's America going to do about it? Is America going to stop Germany from going rogue? I think America wants Germany to become militarily independent. I think America wants Germany to become a military power again, so that way the Germans can deal with the Russians. And Germany has more of an incentive to go to war with Russia because Germany's right next door. Germany and Russia are neighbors. They're right near each other. And there was once a chunk of Russia that belonged to Germany. It's called Kaliningrad, and I'm sure the Germans wouldn't mind taking it. And then you have Germany slowly deploying troops into Lithuania. And then you have the border region between Poland and Lithuania. And there's a nice little strip of forest land right there. And the Russians could use it as a way to enter the Baltic. So the Germans have the incentive. America is in between two oceans. They can say, well, we really don't want to deal with it. We got our own problems. We got BLM and some crazy right-wing shit to deal with here. We got a bunch of Jan 6ers here. So you guys deal with it. And so the Germans will say, okay. And then they'll have a reason to really revive their military power and then try to create some kind of pan-European military force. Japanese won the war with Imperial Russia. Yes, but Japan didn't invade Russia. They had a war at Port Arthur. And the Russians did lose technically, but at the expense of ungodly amounts of casualties. It's the British. You sound more like Tom Longo. I don't know who that is. I'll have to look that guy up. Germans with nukes. Yes, you can look into this. The Germans have been talking about this. Actually building nuclear weapons. Yep, that's correct. Human nature never changes. That's what people tend to forget. And it's human nature to think that human nature has changed for some reason. Congo. Yep, that's another hellhole. The only problem I have with World War II historians is they always say the Germans started killing Jews for no reason. Well, the thing is that, and I think this is where historians do a disservice to the politics of remembrance, the politics of, or the importance of remembering the Holocaust. So the thing about the Holocaust is that the Germans tried to justify the Holocaust by pointing to certain realities that were going on before the Holocaust. So you had the reality of terrorism in Weimar Germany, where you had terrorists who happened to be Jews doing some terrorist stuff, trying to make Germany into a socialist society or to a Soviet vassal. And then you had the Bolshevik threat, and there were a substantial amount of Jews in the Bolshevik movement. So there was that. And then on top of that, you had the Russian threat and the fact that Soviets wanted Germany to become Sovietized. You had several revolutions that were done within Germany, the most famous of which is probably the Spartacist movement. And I think there was a revolution that took place in Hamburg, if I'm not mistaken. You had people like Eugene Levine, who was a Jewish communist who led a revolution within Germany. And then he said, I don't care if German babies starve to death because they're just the babies. They're the spawn. They are the spawn of the bourgeoisie or whatever in Germany. So there's that. And then you had, like I said, the Soviet expansionism. So there were all these things that were happening, and so the Germans pointed to that to justify their own genocidal ideology. I think it's very important that we point these realities out, that we point to these realities, that we talk about these realities in history, and we talk about why the Germans believed that it was justifiable to hate Jews. The reason why I think it's very important is because by understanding this, we understand that people point to facts to justify genocide. The biggest issue that I have with the style of today's historians is that, like you said, they say that the Germans just woke up one morning and said, we hate Jews, and that's not what happened. In the 1920s, there were plenty of Germans who had no issues with Jews. So something happened within that decade, going into the 30s, where people began to hate Jews and hatred towards Jews increased. We should talk about the reasons as to how that sparked, or we should talk about the circumstances in which that sort of hatred rose up. Because if we start saying things like they just woke up one morning and said we hate Jews, the problem is that when Nazis come out today and say we hate these particular peoples, and you say you're just like the Nazis, they're going to say, no, we're not like the Nazis, because the Nazis killed for no reason. We are killing for a reason. We have to understand that genocide is justified by realities. It's justified by facts. And when we understand this, we can anticipate their tactics. Their main tactic is to mix truth and facts. It's like that scene from The Exorcist where the older priest tells Father Harris before the exorcism, when you face the devil, understand that the devil will mix truth with facts to confuse us. It's a psychological war. The devil is no different in reality. He will use realities to justify evils. So if we can understand that, then we can anticipate their tactic, and we can say, wait a second, we can warn people and tell them, understand that, yes, these people are pointing to facts, but they're doing so with evil motivations, just like the Nazis did. So that's why I think that this way of viewing history is very dangerous. It's not only a disservice to the remembrance of the Holocaust, but it's also very dangerous in the sense that you're not equipping people with the understanding of how genocidal ideologues work. And when you don't understand that, then you're not going to be ready for the tactics. Because if you believe that the Germans, like I said, just woke up and just began to hate Jews, then when Nazis today come out and they start pointing out facts as to, or to justify why they hated particular people, you can say, well, wait a second, you're like a Nazi. No, we actually have reasons. And then they can use that against you and then try to make themselves look smart. So it's very dangerous. When there is a problem in society and you don't deal with that problem, then you're going to have people who are very destructive becoming popular. And then once they get power, they're going to be genocidal. That's what happened. So the migrant problem is an example of this. The migrant problem wasn't dealt with in Germany, so now you have Nazis gaining double-digit election victories because the government did not deal with the migrant problem. So when people's problems are not dealt with, then they're going to go and find someone who is going to deal with the problem, and they're going to say, "Oh, these Nazis are here. We're going to vote for them." That's the problem. That is the problem, everyone.